Taylor on the ground to second. Olivares will come to the plate, and now Banks is caught in a rundown. Oh, this is a disaster all around. That might be obstruction. That might just be obstruction if he didn't go out of the base path.
Both Coach Amaya and Coach Carr.
They're losing their mind.
They can't believe it.
I can't believe they called that because he ran on the grass.
Yeah.
So let's break down this play. We'll walk through it, talk about the obstruction call, and then decide whether or not that was actually the correct call that was made on the field. Now, we'll focus in on the NFHS rules since this was an NFHS game, but you should know that the ruling here would be the same in NCAA or OBR. So we'll circle back to that, but first, let's get to the definition of obstruction in the NFHS rules. Obstruction is an act, intentional or unintentional, as well as physical or verbal, by a fielder, any member of the defensive team, or its team personnel, that hinders a runner or changes the pattern of play. Now, on this play, we do have contact between the runner and a fielder not in possession of the ball, but my question to you is, did this contact actually hinder or change the pattern of play? And we're going to need to answer what is basically the same question if we're working a game using collegiate or professional rules. So let's look at the definition of obstruction in NCAA and OBR, which is going to be the exact same. It says, obstruction is the act of a fielder who, while not in possession of the ball and not in the act of fielding the ball, impedes the progress of any runner. So the key question is, did this contact by a fielder that was not in possession of the ball or in the process of fielding the ball, did this contact actually impede the runner? And the correct answer to that should have been no. Now, don't take this the wrong way. Watching this live would have been really hard to make the call, and I saw another camera angle from lower on the field, and it would have just been really hard to accurately see this play. But when we watch it from the high angle, we see that the runner, when he makes that contact, clearly went out of his way to try and create contact. Now, that doesn't mean the contact is malicious because we don't have an intent to injure or an intent to dislodge the ball. But the runner's goal with this contact, there's no doubt about it. He was trying to make contact to see if he could steal an obstruction call. And with his purpose here being he wanted to draw contact, well, the fielder didn't impede him from doing that because he did make that contact. There was no obstruction on this play. It does matter that this was intentional, what the runner was doing, but once there's intent to create contact, if they let him get that contact, they didn't stop him from doing that. So there's no obstruction on this play. There's not interference or malicious contact either, but there's nothing that hindered the runner's advance. Now, I overheard one conversation where the umpires were talking about, well, if you have contact, it's either interference or obstruction. And for the most part, that is true. A lot of time, umpires incorrectly rule that's nothing when contact should have been either obstruction or interference. But also, most of the time, the contact between the two isn't intentional by either party. However, on this one, it clearly is intentional contact being created by the runner. The fielder attempted to get out of his way, and really did if the runner was truly trying to advance back to the plate, but the runner wasn't. The runner clearly deviated to create contact, and that is a judgment call, but use good judgment. This is clearly the runner going out of his way to get contact, and since he was successfully able to run where he wanted to and create contact, then we don't have anyone on the defense impeding his progress because he got where he wanted to go, which was into the catcher. So we don't reward him for creating contact when it's not an illegitimate attempt to advance or retreat to a bag. If we were to just say any contact between a fielder without the ball and a runner is obstruction, then runners would never try to steal. They would just go straight into the closest defensive player, just try to run into them. You can't say that so long as they don't have the ball, any contact is obstruction. That's simply not true. Obstruction is when a runner is hindered from where he is trying to go. In this scenario, he was trying to go into the fielder, and congratulations, he was able to do that. But in no way was he hindered trying to go to the plate. And if that's the case, then we don't have obstruction. And funny enough, within the last few weeks, we also had a similar play at the MLB level. And what we're going to find is that the MLB umpires they're not going to be fooled by a runner trying to just create contact like this.
And that is a line drive into left. O'Hearn getting the send around. Palacios' throw home is cut off. Mayo is hung up.
Oh.
And
I think he went
collision there.
Well, he went out of his way to hit him, I believe, and now they're going to tag him. Now, the reason he gets caught is because he wants to make sure. Now, he does go out of his way to hit him. You don't see, I mean, I can't remember the last time I ever saw that happen. But they tag him, and, you know, the other, whoever, let's see who he runs into. He runs into Vargas, not very hard, and they're going, what are you doing?
So on this play, just like in our high school game, we have a runner who got stuck in a rundown, who clearly knows he's most likely going to be tagged out, and instead of legitimately trying to advance or retreat, he simply tries to create contact to see if he can steal an obstruction call. Of course, our MLB umpires, they're not going to be fooled by this. They saw it. And our first base umpire, Adam Hammery, he's not going to be fooled by this, but he also doesn't make a call initially because it's not interference by the runner. It's not obstruction by the fielder. There's really nothing until he sees the fielder with the ball actually tag the runner. At that point, the runner is out, but he was never hindered or obstructed from advancing where he was trying to go because where he tried to go was into the fielder. So again, I want to say this was a really hard call on the field. And when I saw it from the lower camera angle, it was really hard to tell the intent of the runner. But when we look at it from this high angle, I did want to clarify that it's pretty apparent that this was intentional contact created by the runner. So we're not going to have malicious contact, but at the same time, we're not going to have obstruction either. The proper ruling here should have been that the runner was out when he was finally tagged by a defensive player with the ball.